The Eight Immortals Travel East, Chapter 23.
Usually when we think about a casual slip of the tongue, we think about, like, maybe a few minutes of agonizing embarrassment.
Right, yeah, like a minor social friction.
Exactly. You're at a restaurant, the waiter drops off your food, smiles and says, "Enjoy your meal."
Oh, I know where this is going.
And you, completely on autopilot, confidently reply, "Thanks, you too."
A classic. It's the worst.
It is. You cringe. The waiter politely ignores it. You take a bite of your food, and you just move on with your life. I mean, the stakes are practically zero.
Yeah, it's just a brief, totally harmless spike of cortisol, and then the universe continues exactly as it did before. The error has no physical weight.
But what if that simple "you too" didn't just evaporate into the air? What if, by some terrifying, unbreakable law of cosmic physics, that single accidental phrase locked you into a legally binding contract to serve that waiter for the rest of their life? Better yet, what if it locked you into an entirely new, extra lifetime of existence, forcing you to reincarnate as a mortal, all just to make good on that one mistaken sentence?
I mean, you're describing a universe where words aren't just sounds vibrating in the air, right? They are absolute, unbreakable mechanisms of fate.
Yes. To speak is to create a physical law.
It's the ultimate definition of a cosmic overreaction by our modern standards. But in the cosmological framework we're exploring today, that's just, well, it's standard operating procedure.
And that terrifying, fascinating concept of, like, absolute linguistic accountability is exactly where we are starting today, because we know you appreciate not just the surface level beats of a good story, but the hidden mechanics beneath it. Today, we're opening up Chapter 23 of the classic Chinese mythological narrative, Journey to the East, or Dongyuji.
Yeah, we are looking really closely at the origin story of Lu Dongbin, who is arguably one of the most famous, iconic figures in all of Chinese mythology.
He's a huge deal.
He is a towering figure. He's one of the Eight Immortals. But what makes this specific source material so incredibly rich is that it refuses to just give us a standard linear superhero origin story.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Instead, it gives us an intricately detailed blueprint for spiritual awakening. And it wraps that blueprint in a deeply psychological, almost modern narrative about failure, ambition, and, well, the relativity of time.
The mission is to basically tear that exact blueprint apart. We're going to explore how this ancient text uses a bizarre cosmic typo, incredibly strange, borderline monstrous physical description,
Monstrous.
crushing midlife career failure, and a legendary, mind-bending dream sequence to illustrate this massive tension between our earthly ambitions and true spiritual liberation.
It is a phenomenal text because it operates simultaneously on so many different levels. I mean, it's an epic fantasy with magical swords and immortals, certainly.
Oh, it's got all the cool action stuff.
But it's fundamentally a profound piece of philosophical literature. It forces us to ask what we are actually striving for in our own lives and what the ultimate cost of that striving might be.
So let's unpack this from the very beginning. Let's talk about the immense burden of this cosmic typo.
Okay, yeah.
The text introduces us to our main character. His surname is Liu, his given name is Yan, his courtesy name is Dongbin, and his pseudonym is Chunyangzi.
You have a lot of names.
So many names. But before he was any of those things, before he was even encased in human flesh, he was an immortal named Donghua Zenren.
The term Zenren is really critical here. It translates roughly to true person or perfected person.
Okay, what does that actually mean in practice?
Well, in the Taoist spiritual hierarchy, a Zenren is an entity that has completely transcended the illusions of the mortal realm. They have harmonized entirely with the Tao, the fundamental nature of the universe. They don't experience hunger, aging, or petty earthly desires. They exist way above the mundane dust. So, as an immortal, you would think Donghua has it all figured out. He has reached the finish line.
But he hasn't, because the text gives us the reason for his sudden descent back into mortality. And the reason is it's shockingly mundane.
It really is.
Donghua is in the process of converting another immortal, a guy named Zhongli. And during this deeply spiritual conversion process, Donghua accidentally misspeaks.
He flubs his line.
He makes a literal slip of the tongue and says out loud that he will seek Zhongli out as a master.
And because of that spoken error, the universe instantly demands a rebalancing.
Instantly.
Donghua is violently pulled from his state of perfection. He is forced to descend to the mortal realm, to endure the trauma of being born as a human, to grow up, to suffer.
All of that.
simply so that Zhongli can eventually become his master in this new earthly life, thereby fulfilling that mistaken promise.
Here is where the mechanics of this universe get really interesting to me. It's exactly like my restaurant analogy, but scaled up to a divine bureaucracy.
Right.
Donghua is originally the teacher in this dynamic. He's the one converting Zhongli. But because Donghua accidentally said, "I'll seek you as a master," the universe forces a complete, non-negotiable role reversal in the next life.
Yeah, it completely flips the script.
What kind of universe operates with this level of bureaucratic literalism? It feels almost punitive.
Oh, it's not punitive so much as it is a universe governed by the strict physics of karma. In this cosmological framework, karma isn't just a vague concept of, what goes around comes around.
What is it then?
It is a heavy physical substance. Words have immense binding power because breath and intent are the tools of creation.
So you literally construct reality when you speak.
Exactly. A casual remark from a Zenrin isn't just a sound wave. It creates a tangible cosmic debt. It's a universe of absolute, terrifying accountability. Destiny is this tangled, bureaucratic web of past debts that must be paid in full. There are absolutely no loopholes.
You can't just say, "Oops, I misspoke." You know what I meant.
No, the universe says, you spoke the words, the energy was released, now you must live an entire human lifetime to enact it and neutralize that energy.
That is so suffocating. It means every single interaction, every spoken word carries the weight of potential eternity.
It's a lot of pressure.
Though, I have to point out, the source material does offer this hilarious, almost contradictory alternative theory right after establishing this grand karmic rule.
Oh, I love this part.
It says an alternative theory suggests he is the reincarnation of Huayang Zenrin, simply because he liked wearing the Huayang hat.
It perfectly demonstrates how mythological texts are constructed, doesn't it? They are layered over centuries.
Yeah, it's like two completely different writers just stapled their ideas together.
Exactly. On one hand, you have this profound, highly structured karmic debt theory that deals with the physics of speech. On the other hand, you have a later theory based entirely on a mortal fashion choice.
Just a guy who really liked a specific hat.
Right. But if we dig into it, both theories actually point to the exact same underlying theme.
Which is?
That Lu Dongbin's mortal life is not a clean slate. When he is born, he is already carrying the massive baggage of a previous existence.
Whether that's a spoken promise that binds the fabric of reality, or just a lingering subconscious attachment to a specific style of headwear.
Exactly. The past is bleeding into his present before he even takes a breath.
But if the universe is going to force you into a dense mortal life over a typo, it at least equips you with an unforgettable mortal vessel.
That it does.
This brings us to the anatomy of a Taoist superhero. Let's look at his birth and his physiology. He's born in the Tang Dynasty, in Puzhou, Yongle County. And importantly, he is not born into a family of humble, hardworking farmers.
Far from it. He is born into the absolute zenith of the Confucian social order. His grandfather was the minister of rites. His father was the prefect of Haizu.
We need to pause and understand what this means in Tang Dynasty China. The minister of rites is one of the most powerful positions in the empire, right?
Oh, absolutely. They controlled state ceremonies, the education system, and diplomatic relations. And a prefect governs an entire region.
So this is the equivalent of being born into a modern family composed of, Supreme Court justices and high-ranking senators.
It's extreme privilege. The expectations placed on his shoulders from the moment he takes his first breath are astronomically high. He is not just expected to succeed.
He is mandated to perpetuate the family's legacy in the imperial bureaucracy.
Precisely.
But the cosmos is already loudly signaling that he doesn't belong in a government office.
Yeah, the signs are there from day one.
He's born in the 14th year of the Zenyuan era, on the 14th day of the 4th month, precisely at the Psi hour. And his mother's pregnancy and his birth are accompanied by these wild, undeniable omens.
Very dramatic omens.
The text says a strange fragrance suddenly filled the room, heavenly music played from nowhere, and a white crane flew from the sky right into his mother's bosom and vanished.
The white crane is incredibly significant here. In Taoist symbolism, the crane isn't just a bird.
What does it represent?
It is the ultimate symbol of longevity, immortality, and transcendence. It is literally the vehicle of the immortals. It navigates between the earthly realm and the heavens.
Wow, okay.
So while his immediate family lineage is screaming, Confucian bureaucrat, tax collector, magistrate, the overarching cosmos is screaming, Taoist immortal Skyrider.
There is a fundamental structural clash of destinies happening right at the moment of his birth.
It's a cosmic tug of war.
And that clash becomes shockingly, literally physical. The text gives us a description of what he looked like as he grows, and honestly, this is one of the most wild, bizarre, physical descriptions I have ever encountered in literature.
It's quite something.
It starts by saying he has a metal shape, jade essence, Taoist bone, immortal aura. Now, to modern ears, that sounds beautiful and poetic, but I assume metal and jade aren't just adjectives here.
You're absolutely right. They aren't mere adjectives. They are highly technical terms from Chinese internal alchemy, known as Niden.
Okay, Niden, what's the goal there?
In Niden, the goal is to transform the physical body into an immortal vessel by refining the internal energies. Metal represents the lungs, but more importantly, it represents unyielding strength, purity, and the refined essence that survives the fire of spiritual transformation.
And what about jade?
Jade is even more profound. It represents the absolute perfection of energy, incorruptibility, and the ultimate alignment with heaven.
So when the text says he has a metal shape and jade essence, it is stating categorically that his physiological makeup is not standard human tissue.
Right. His internal energy channels are already pre-configured for immortality. He is a biological anomaly.
And that anomaly extends to his actual visible features. The text gets incredibly specific. It says he had a crane's top, meaning his head, an ape's back, a tiger's body, dragon's cheeks, phoenix eyes pointing up to heaven.
It just keeps going.
It does. Eyebrows reaching his temples, a long neck, exposed cheekbones, and he was 8 feet 2 inches tall.
Don't forget the feet.
Right.
Ah.
Oh, and to top it off, he had a straight nose, a yellowish-white complexion, a black mole on his left eyebrow, and footprints that actually resembled turtle shells.
It is a profoundly overwhelming composite image.
Let's just stop and visualize this walking down the street for a second.
It's tough to picture naturally.
If you actually draw a person with a hunched ape back, a massive muscular tiger torso, a long spindly crane neck, intensely pronounced cheekbones, eyes that literally slant up toward the sky, and massive turtle shell feet, and you make him over 8 feet tall.
Yeah, what do you get?
You do not get a handsome, swooning romantic hero. You get a terrifying monster. It sounds like a chimera created in a horror movie laboratory.
If you attempt to construct it as a literal police sketch, yes, it sounds grotesque. It sounds unhuman.
Completely alien.
But that's exactly the point, and it requires us to understand the ancient art of traditional Chinese physiognomy.
Which is face reading, right?
Face reading, body reading, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the practice of reading destiny and inner character through physical forms. In this tradition, the body is a topographical map of the soul.
So we shouldn't take this literally.
No, these physical features aren't meant to be taken as literal anatomical anomalies. They are symbolic markers of his vast, untamed spiritual potential.
Okay, we need to break that map down. What are all these specific animal parts supposed to communicate to the reader?
Well, each animal represents a specific, highly refined virtue or elemental power. The crane's top, as we discussed, represents an intrinsic connection to the heavens and immense longevity.
Right. What about the ape's back? That one throws me.
The ape's back is fascinating. It represents supreme agility, a deep, primal return to nature, and an untamed vitality that cannot be caged by society.
Ah, I see. And the tiger.
The tiger's body represents raw martial strength, courage, and dominion over earthly forces.
And the dragon cheeks and phoenix eyes.
The dragon is the ultimate symbol of imperial nobility, raw spiritual power, and transformation. Having dragon cheeks means he commands awe.
And the phoenix eyes pointing up.
The phoenix eyes pointing to heaven represent profound grace, high virtue, and a vision that naturally looks past the mundane world toward the divine.
Even the turtle shell footprints. I mean, the turtle is a powerful symbol, right?
Extremely. It's a symbol of ancient, grounding wisdom, supreme stability, and an enduring life that outlasts empires.
So he is, quite literally, a walking, breathing amalgamation of every auspicious symbol available in the culture. He is his spiritual Swiss Army knife.
Exactly. The text is systematically layering these symbols to tell us that he possesses all the necessary raw materials to achieve transcendence. His physical body is uniquely engineered to handle the massive energetic voltages required for immortality.
But I want to pull this back to the reality of his day-to-day life. Think about what it would be like to actually be this guy, or even just be in the same room as him.
It would be intense.
You are over 8 feet tall. You have these intense, upturned phoenix eyes and a massive, imposing tiger body. You are going to stick out like a terrifying sore thumb in a highly refined, polite, aristocratic Confucian household.
Definitely not blending in.
His father's a prefect, throwing elegant banquets, and here comes 8-foot-tall Lu Dongbin with his turtle feet.
I have to wonder how deeply this physical description alienated him from normal society. Did people look at him and feel an innate, unsettling discomfort?
It is highly likely he is physically marked as other. He cannot blend in, and that deep physical sense of otherness is immediately reinforced by his behavior as he grows.
He's not exactly acting normal either.
No. The text tells us that as a youth he was incredibly intelligent. He could memorize 10,000 words a day. When he spoke in perfect, structured essays.
A total intimidating child prodigy. A prodigy, but also profoundly, strangely detached from the expectations of his class. The text explicitly notes a vital detail. At age 20, he remained pure or unmarried.
Why is that word pure so important here?
Because in a noble Confucian family, producing an heir is not just a personal choice. It is the highest possible filial duty.
It's expected of
You
you.
know, more than expected. To fail to continue the family line is considered an offense against your ancestors. By remaining deliberately unmarried at 28, which was considered quite late for an aristocratic male of that era, he is making a massive silent statement of nonconformity.
He is passively rejecting the fundamental building block of the society his grandfather and father dedicated their lives to governing.
Exactly.
He's rejecting the system, and what's wild is that he's getting external validation for this weirdness too. The cosmos keeps interfering.
They won't leave him alone.
When he's just an infant, a strange wandering man named Ma Zhu comes along and reads his face. And again, with the dragon cheeks and the crane top, that must have been quite a face reading session.
I'm sure it was an easy read.
Ma Zhu, look at this baby, and declares that this child is fundamentally beyond the mundane dust. He tells the infant to remember the names Zhongli and Kaihe.
Which is the universe openly dropping breadcrumbs for him. It's that cosmic destiny, the original typo intruding on his elite mortal life.
Ma Zhu is essentially leaning over the crib and saying, don't get too comfortable with the silk robes and the family wealth because you have ancient, unbreakable appointments to keep.
Yes, the clock is ticking on his earthly life.
And he even gets an early tangible taste of magic. As a youth, he goes to Mount Lu, meets a being called the fire dragon Zenrin, and literally learns sword magic to expel demons.
He's checking all the boxes for a mythic hero.
So put yourself in his turtle shell shoes for a moment. You are an 8-foot-tall magical prodigy who speaks in perfect essays, possesses a glowing prophecy over your head, and wields a demon-slaying sword. If you look at this setup, you would think this guy's life is going to be an absolute frictionless breeze.
Oh, for sure.
You'd think he'd march into the capital, conquer the world by Tuesday, and ascend to heaven by Thursday.
You would certainly think so. But if we connect this setup to the bigger philosophical picture, we find a central tenet of Taoist thought.
Which is?
The universe does not just hand over enlightenment or success, even to those who are perfectly biologically designed for it. In fact, often the greater the spiritual potential, the deeper and more agonizing the friction with the mundane world must be to ignite that potential.
Which brings us to one of the most surprising, grounded twists in this source material. Section 3, the 46-year-old failure.
This is where it gets incredibly relatable.
So with all these incredible superhero traits, with the tiger body and the 10,000-word memory, what happens when he actually enters the real world to fulfill his family's expectations? The text hits us with a brutally realistic, almost depressing reality check.
It really does.
Despite his genius, despite his elite background, Dongbin goes to take the imperial examinations during the Huicheng era, and he fails.
And it isn't just a single stumble. He takes them again, and he fails twice.
He fails twice. And the text casually drops this utterly devastating detail. He is now 46 years old.
This is arguably the most critical juncture in the entire narrative. To truly understand the gravity of this failure, we have to unpack exactly what the imperial examinations, the Qiju, were in Tang Dynasty China.
Yeah, paint a picture of what taking these exams actually entailed. Because it wasn't just a tough final exam, right?
No, not at all. They were the singular monopolistic path to success, honor, wealth, and family survival. It was psychological and physical torture.
How so?
Well, candidates spent their entire childhoods memorizing the 4 books and 5 classics of Confucianism, We are talking about hundreds of thousands of characters that had to be memorized perfectly,
Just rote memorization.
along with the thousands of sanctioned commentaries on those texts. And during the exam itself, candidates were locked inside tiny individual cells for days at a time.
Locked in.
Yes. They ate, slept, and wrote in a space barely large enough to sit in. They had to compose highly structured poetry and write complex essays on statecraft and administrative policy.
That sounds brutal. What were the odds of passing?
The pass rate was infinitesimally small. Only a fraction of a percent of candidates ever achieved the highest degree.
But wait, he was the guy who could memorize 10,000 words a day. He was the guy who naturally spoke in essays. He was literally bred and biologically engineered for this specific test. How does a guy with a supercomputer brain fail a memorization and essay test twice?
Because his failure isn't due to a lack of intellect, it represents a fundamental metaphysical incompatibility.
What do you mean?
His jade essence and Taoist bone are literally rejecting the dense, mundane rigidity of the Confucian system. He can memorize the words, but his soul cannot align with the worldly ambition required to channel them perfectly for the examiners.
But the examiners don't know that.
Right. From a societal perspective, the examiners don't see his jade essence. They just see a failed paper. Failing this exam twice, especially coming from a family of prominent ministers and prefects, is a catastrophic, humiliating blow to his ego and his family's legacy.
I keep trying to put this in modern terms to really feel the weight of it. It's like a child prodigy who graduates high school at 12, goes to an Ivy League college, and everyone, their parents, their professors, the media, expects him to cure a major disease or become a Supreme Court justice by 30.
Yeah, massive expectations.
But then they just can't pass the medical boards. They freeze. And suddenly they are 46 years old, still unmarried, still living off their parents' dwindling wealth, having completely and utterly failed to launch in the eyes of society.
That is a perfect modern parallel. The psychological weight of that cognitive dissonance must be crushing.
It has to be.
I mean, he knows he has immortal bones. He knows he has a magical sword. He has this grand prophecy ringing in his ears from infancy. Yet, in the strictly codified, harsh reality of his daily life, he is a middle-aged, unemployed failure who has let his prominent family down.
It makes me wonder, is the universe intentionally sabotaging his earthly success?
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like divine sabotage. Like if he had actually passed those exams with his genius brain, he would have been absorbed into the mortal bureaucracy. He would have become a magistrate in some distant province, gotten bogged down in mundane tax disputes, local politics, and family drama, and entirely missed his cosmic destiny.
He would have died a mortal bureaucrat.
Exactly.
That is exactly the mechanism at work. His earthly failure is actually his cosmic protection.
Wow. Protection through failure.
The universe, or the Tao, cannot allow him to succeed in the Confucian system because that system is a velvet trap for someone with his destiny. The failure is the exact friction required to pry him loose from his family's heavy expectations and, more importantly, from his own ego.
It breaks him down.
It forces a massive crisis of identity. If he is not a successful Confucian scholar, if he cannot be what he was raised to be, then what is he? The failure hollows him out so something else can enter.
So let's look at where this leaves him. He is 26 years old. He has just failed the exams for the second time. He is likely feeling incredibly defeated, profoundly lost, and publicly humiliated.
He's at rock bottom.
He is wandering around the capital city of Shenan, which is the epicenter of all this intense imperial pressure, wealth, and ambition. Everywhere he looks, he sees successful bureaucrats who passed the test he failed.
Which just rubs salt in the wound.
Right. To escape it, or maybe just to drown his profound sorrows, he wanders into a humble tavern, which sets the stage for Section 4. The Shenan Tavern Poetry Slam.
And this tavern is the exact coordinate where the cosmic typo from his previous life, that spoken error centuries ago, finally comes to collect its debt.
Right. In this wine shop, amid the noise and the drinking, Dongbin spots a Taoist priest. The text describes him wearing a green scarf and a white robe. Now we, the readers, know exactly who this is.
It's Zhongli.
Yes, this is Yunfang, also known as Zhongli, the very immortal that Dongko accidentally promised to take as a master lifetimes ago.
The universe has spent 46 years maneuvering them into the exact same room at the exact right moment of Dongbin's despair.
But the activation of this destiny doesn't happen with a lightning bolt or a dramatic magical display. It happens through poetry.
Which is so fitting for a scholar.
I love this scene because, to a modern reader, it feels like an impromptu rap battle or an intense poetry slam in a dive bar. The priest, Yunfang, has written 3 poems directly onto the wall of the tavern.
Just graffitied them right on there.
Exactly. And these aren't just pretty decorative words about nature. They are an absolute flex, a radical manifesto of his worldview.
We really need to look at the specific content of those 3 poems because they are deeply subversive, especially considering they are written in a tavern in Chang'an, the absolute heart of the political empire.
I'll read the first poem. It says, carrying wine, ignoring the capital, having no name in the universe, a free man.
That is a direct surgical attack on everything Dongbin has been desperately striving for.
Because he wants a name so badly.
Right. To be physically in Chang, the center of wealth and power, and to actively ignore it. To desire no name when the entire grueling imperial exam system is solely about making a name for yourself and your ancestors.
It's totally contrary to the society around them.
Yunfang is advertising a radical, untethered freedom that directly mocks the ambition of the men in that city.
Then we get the second poem, True Immortals Are Rare. He lives near the Eastern Sea on Penglai's first peak. So he's casually dropping his home address, which happens to be a mythical, unreachable island of immortals.
It's a blatant invitation and an establishment of credentials. He's saying, I am not a wandering beggar. I am from the peak of existence.
And the third poem really twists the psychological knife. Tired of worldly pleasures, counting on his fingers, very few people ever attain true peace.
This one addresses the existential exhaustion of the mortal realm that Dongbin is drowning in right now.
He's definitely exhausted.
Yunfang is sitting in that tavern, looking around at the city of Chang'an, looking at all the stressed scholars and ambitious politicians, and pointing out the absolute futility of it all. He's saying, look at all these people endlessly chasing pleasure, promotions, and ambition. They are running on a treadmill. None of them are actually at peace.
Dongbin, this depressed 46-year-old failure, reads these poems on the wall, and he is deeply amazed. The text says he marvels at the priest's ancient appearance and elegant poetry.
He recognizes the skill.
Now, you have to understand, Dongbin knows good poetry. He memorized 10,000 words a day. He recognizes a master. He approaches the priest, bows deeply, asks his name, and invites him to sit down and share a drink.
And Yunfang is just waiting for this.
Yeah, Yunfang, sensing that the trap is set, looks at Dongbin and says, write a poem to reveal your ambition. It's a direct, unavoidable challenge. He's saying, show me what's really inside you. Justify your existence.
And Dongbin's poetic response is incredibly revealing. But it's revealing not just for what it literally says, but for the profound cognitive dissonance and self-deception it exposes to the reader.
Okay, let's break down exactly what Dongbin writes in response. He writes,
What?
born in a Confucian family in peaceful times, wearing scholar clothes, who wants to fight for worldly fame? I want to serve the heavenly emperor.
This immediately raises a critical question for us to analyze. Is Dongbin intentionally lying to Yunfang to look cool, or is he actually lying to himself?
See, I read this and I immediately call BS. I picture him sitting there, his expensive scholar robes, maybe a little rumpled from failing his exams for the second time, smelling like cheap tavern wine.
The picture of a defeated man.
He literally just spent the last 4 decades of his life, up to age 46, memorizing tens of thousands of complex texts, specifically to fight tooth and nail for worldly fame in the imperial exams.
Right.
And now he sits down with this cool, mysterious Taoist and says, fame? Oh, who wants to fight for that? I never really cared about that stuff. I just want to serve the heavens.
It sounds like the ultimate case of sour grapes.
It absolutely does, and it's a very recognizable, very human defense mechanism.
You can't fire me, I quit.
Exactly.
Oh.
He has just been brutally rejected by the imperial system, so his immediate psychological reaction is to loudly reject the system in return to save his ego. I didn't fail the test. The test is beneath me.
It's so transparent.
However, we also have to recognize the nuance here. The actual seed of his true destiny is buried in that poem, I want to serve the heavenly emperor. The deep desire for spiritual transcendence is genuinely there, but it is buried under decades of heavy Confucian conditioning and bruised pride.
Once he's fractured.
He is a man agonizingly torn between 2 worlds. His ego is bruised because he failed the mortal test, but his mortal soul recognizes the profound truth in Yunfang's poems.
But he hasn't fully let go of the mortal world yet. He's just reframing his failure, which is something we do all the time today, right?
Oh, all the time.
You get passed over for a massive promotion at work, and suddenly you start telling all your friends, honestly, I'm glad I didn't get it. I didn't want the stress of middle management anyway. I'm really trying to focus on my work-life balance and mindfulness.
Yeah, I'm focusing on my health right now.
Exactly. You only manage to find the moral, spiritual high ground after you've been forcefully pushed into the valley of failure.
Precisely. Intellectual reframing is incredibly easy. You can write a beautiful poem about giving up worldly fame in 5 minutes. But actually severing the deep, visceral, biological attachments to success, comfort, status, and the approval of your parents is entirely different.
It's completely different.
Yunfang is a master. He reads Dongbin's poem and he sees right through the contradiction. He hears the sour grapes. He knows that Dongbin's words are hollow because the attachment is still alive inside him.
So Yunfang decides to test him directly. He reveals his identity. He says, "I am Yunfang. I live on the Zanin Crane Peak. Will you join me?" He literally offers him the escape hatch right there. You say you want to serve the heavens, let's go right now.
And how does our supposedly transcendent scholar react?
He hesitates. After just writing a poem explicitly saying, "I want to serve the heavens," when the heavens literally hand him a golden invitation, he freezes up.
He balks.
He can't commit. Because despite his failure, he's still holding on to the what-ifs of his mortal life. What if he tries the exams just one more time? What if he studies harder? What if he can still salvage his family's pride and get that corner office in the bureaucracy?
That hesitation is all the proof Yunfang needs. Dongbin is still deeply infected with worldly ambition. A simple philosophical lecture or a clever poem isn't going to cure a 46-year-old infection.
He needs something stronger.
Much stronger. He needs a radical, invasive intervention. He needs to experience the absolute ultimate conclusion of his earthly desires in order to realize how fundamentally empty they are.
Which brings us to the absolute centerpiece of one of the greatest allegories in literature. Section 5. The Yellow Millet Dream. This is the ultimate virtual reality experience.
It is arguably the most famous dream sequence in Chinese literature, and for very good reason. It perfectly encapsulates Taoist metaphysics regarding the illusion of reality and the relativity of time.
So Dongbin is hesitating, stumbling over his words, unable to commit. Yunfang doesn't argue with him, he doesn't preach. He just calmly turns to the tavern stove and starts cooking a small pot of yellow millet.
Just making a snack.
Now, yellow millet is a basic, quick-cooking grain. It doesn't take long to boil, but as the grain just starts to warm up, Dongbin suddenly feels overwhelmingly, unnaturally tired. He slumps over and falls fast asleep right there at the tavern table, and the dream begins.
And what a dream it is. It is not a fuzzy, surreal dream. It is a perfectly tailored, hyper-realistic, high-definition simulation of exactly what Dongbin's ego has been desperately craving for 46 years.
We need to walk through the pacing of this dream meticulously, because it is masterful in how it builds attachment. In the dream, Dongbin goes back to the capital to take the imperial exams again. But this time, the friction is gone.
The universe lets him win.
He doesn't fail. He doesn't just barely pass. He scores absolute first place. He is named the Zhuang Yuan, the top scholar in the entire empire.
Try to imagine the dopamine hit of that moment. It is the ultimate, undeniable validation of his massive intellect. It is the complete public erasure of his previous decades of humiliation. The emperor himself recognizes his genius.
And the dream doesn't stop at one victory. It maps out 40 relentless years of continuous escalating success. He's promoted to censor. Then he is elevated to the Hanlin Academy, the most prestigious group of scholars.
He's climbing fast.
Then he enters the secret cabinet, gaining proximity to the emperor. Then he becomes a commander. He is climbing the treacherous bureaucratic ladder with zero friction, zero setbacks.
And critically, his personal life flourishes just as much as his professional life. Remember, the text explicitly noted he was pure and unmarried at 20, likely still an unmarried failure at 46.
Right.
In the dream, he finally fulfills his filial duty. He marries not one, but two beautiful, wealthy women from prestigious families. He has children. He experiences the joy of watching his children grow up.
It builds a whole dynasty.
He navigates their lives and marries them off to other powerful, noble families. He is eventually surrounded by a horde of grandchildren. His massive estate is filled with the hairpins and official tablets of a deeply entrenched noble dynasty.
He has woven himself perfectly into the fabric of society. And then, the capstone. He is appointed prime minister. For 10 glorious years, he wields immense, unparalleled power over the entire nation.
The absolute peak of mortal achievement.
He has literally everything a Tang Dynasty scholar could possibly dream of. Wealth, supreme status, a lasting legacy, absolute power, a massive loving family. He has played the game of mortal life and achieved a flawless 100% completion victory screen.
He has spent 50 simulated years accumulating every single attachment that binds a human being to the mortal realm. He has woven a massive, intricate, heavy web of love, pride, duty, and power. His identity is entirely fused with his success.
He is the prime minister.
Exactly. And then once the attachment is absolute, the simulation changes parameters.
The fall is so incredibly sudden, it gives me whiplash just reading it. After 50 years of uninterrupted glory, he is suddenly accused of grave, treasonous crimes. And the text doesn't even bother to tell us what the specific crimes are because the details don't matter. The mechanism of his destruction is entirely arbitrary.
That's a crucial, realistic point about Tang politics. In the realm of absolute worldly power, fortune can reverse in a literal instant.
Really, just like that?
Oh, absolutely. You are always at the absolute mercy of the emperor's fleeting whim, a sudden regime change, or a jealous rival's fabricated plot. The higher you climb, the farther you fall.
His vast, accumulated wealth is entirely confiscated by the state. His 2 wives, his beloved children, his grandchildren, the massive family he spent decades nurturing and building are forcibly separated from him, likely sold or scattered.
It's a total erasure of his identity.
And he is stripped of his rank and exiled to the Lingnan region. Now, we really need to contextualize Lingnan for the listener, because exile sounds bad, but Lingnan is a specific type of hell in this era, right?
Absolutely. Lingnan, which roughly corresponds to the modern-day provinces of Guangdong and Guangxi in the far south, was considered the absolute fringes of the civilized world during the Tang Dynasty.
It wasn't just a change of scenery.
No, it was a malarial, harsh, sweltering, tropical frontier filled with unfamiliar diseases and hostile terrain. For a pampered, high-ranking court official from the refined, temperate capital of Chang'an, exile to Lingnan was effectively a slow, miserable, agonizing death sentence.
Wow.
It represented total alienation, a complete loss of culture, and guaranteed physical suffering.
So we reach the absolute climax of the dream. He is an old, broken man now. He has lost his titles, his wealth, his wives, his children. He is entirely alone, physically exhausted, shivering in the freezing snow of a mountain pass on his way to his death sentence, with only his tired horse for company.
A devastating image.
He stands there in the snow, and he lets out this heavy, profound sigh at the total, undeniable ruin of his entire existence. He is feeling the absolute nadir of human despair. Everything he built turned to dust.
He has experienced the full, unedited life cycle of worldly attachment. He experienced the intoxicating, addictive rise, the comfortable, powerful plateau, and the inevitable, catastrophic, agonizing loss.
And right at that exact moment of total freezing despair, he wakes up, his eyes snap open, he's back in the tavern in Chan, he's 46 years old again.
Just a guy at a table.
And he looks over at the stove and that small pot of yellow millet that Yunfang put on the fire right before he fell asleep. It isn't even fully cooked yet. The water is barely boiling.
The psychological whiplash of that realization is almost unimaginable.
I try to compare it to playing a highly immersive video game, like a hyper-realistic version of The Sims.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
You sit there for hours. You build a massive, beautiful mansion. You carefully design your character. You get them a high-paying job. They get married. They have kids. You invest so much real emotional energy into this tiny digital world over hours and hours.
You're fully invested.
And then, right before you save the game, a power surge happens, the screen goes black, and the file is permanently deleted. You stare at the black screen, and your logical brain realizes none of it was physically real, but your heart rate is still elevated. You still feel a genuine pang of loss.
Because the emotions were real.
Now magnify that digital loss to the scale of an entire tactile human lifespan, complete with the vivid sensory memories of holding your newborn children, the taste of banquets, and the biting physical pain of the freezing snow in exile.
It is a devastating nuclear-level philosophical weapon. Because if Yunfang had just sat Dongbin down and lectured him, saying, "Fame is fleeting, power ends in ruin," Dongbin would have nodded and agreed intellectually.
Like he did in the poem.
Just like he did in his poem, but he wouldn't have truly understood it in his bones. By forcing Dongbin to actually live the illusion of success, to feel the joy, and then suffer the agony of its loss, Yunfang demonstrates irrefutably that the success itself is the trap.
The joy guarantees the pain.
Exactly. The joy of the rise is the exact mechanism that guarantees the agony of the fall.
It makes me wonder about the nature of the dream. Is this dream purely Yunfang's external magic? Or is it just the subconscious, pressurized manifestation of a 46-year-old's deepest, most desperate desires crashing into his absolute worst anxieties?
In the literal context of the myth, it is certainly Yunfang's divine magic orchestrating the simulation. But psychologically, it functions perfectly as a mirror. It is Dongbin's own mind constructing the ultimate fantasy and then logically collapsing it.
It's his own brain betraying his ego.
The dream forces him to confront the terrifying reality that even if he got exactly what he thought he wanted, the exam victory, the wealth, the family, it would all eventually end in loss. Everything built in the mortal world is subject to decay. There is no permanent victory in the mundane realm.
But the truly mind-bending part of this is the relativity of time. The text is making a massive statement here. To Dongbin, he just lived 50 agonizing, joyful, exhausting years. But to the universe, to the guy cooking the millet, it was 15 minutes.
That is the ultimate Taoist aha moment of the text. It isn't just a psychological trick to scare him, it's a metaphysical argument. To the Tao, to the eternal universe, an entire human lifespan is just 15 minutes of cooking green. It passes in a flash.
It really puts things in perspective.
The dream forces Dongbin to realize that his waking life, his obsession with passing the exams at 46, is equally as fleeting, equally as fragile, and equally as illusory as the dream he just woke up from.
Put yourself in his shoes. Imagine experiencing 50 years of love, absolute power, and ultimate soul-crushing loss, only to wake up 15 minutes later and smell cooking grain. How does your physical brain even process that much data?
I don't think you can without fundamentally changing.
Where fundamental perception of reality would be permanently, irrevocably altered. You would look around that tavern at the wooden tables, at your own hands, and you would realize how terrifyingly fragile it all is. You would never look at a promotion the same way again.
Which is exactly the vulnerable, shattered state Yunfang needs him in. Dongbin is finally broken open. The hardened, calcified shell of his Confucian ambition has been completely shattered by the emotional, visceral reality of the simulation.
This leads us directly into Section 6, the awakening and the rejection. Dongbin wakes up, gasping for air, traumatized, probably checking his face for wrinkles, and Yunfang is just sitting there across the table, calmly smiling.
He knows exactly what just happened.
Yunfang recites a short poem. The yellow millet isn't even cooked, but you've already dreamed of Huaxu. And just for context, Huaxu is a mythical, utopian dreamland in ancient Chinese texts.
By saying that, Yunfang is winking at him. He is letting Dongbin know, I was the architect of that experience. I saw everything you built, and I saw you lose it.
Dongbin is utterly shocked. He says, you knew my dream. And Yunfang delivers the core, devastating philosophy of this entire text. He says, the 50 years of glory and disgrace were just a flash. Gaining it isn't worth joy. Losing it isn't worth grief. Worldly pleasure is the root of worldly sorrow.
That is the ultimate Taoist diagnosis of the human condition encapsulated in 3 sentences. The attachment to the pleasure guarantees the sorrow when the pleasure inevitably fades, decays, or is taken away by force.
You can't separate them.
You cannot have the joy of the prime ministership without the grief of the exile. They are 2 sides of the exact same coin. The only way to avoid the sorrow of shivering in the snow is to fundamentally detach from the joy of the initial promotion.
Dongbin hears this, and because he just lived it, the truth of it resonates perfectly with the 50 simulated years he still feels in his bones. The cognitive dissonance is finally gone, the sour grapes are gone, he gets it on a cellular level.
It's a true awakening.
He is deeply, profoundly moved. He bows deeply to Yunfang and finally asks, with total sincerity, to be taught the ways of immortality. He says, I'm ready, I see the illusion. I choose the path.
And if this were a standard Hollywood movie, you would expect this to be the triumphant, swelling music moment.
Cue the montage.
Exactly. The master and student are finally united, the cosmic typo from centuries ago is resolved, the music swells, and the training montage begins.
But no, the text subverts our expectations again. Yunfang delivers one of the most surprising, brutal responses in mythological history. He looks at Dongbin, this guy he's literally waited lifetimes to teach, this guy he'd just psychologically traumatized with a magical dream specifically to wake him up. And Yunfang says, your worldly ties aren't completely severed, wait a few lifetimes.
It's so cold.
And then Yunfang just gets up and leaves. He walks out of the tavern.
It is a shocking moment. But we have to understand why he does this. It's not just arbitrary, tough love to see if Dongbin will cry. It comes back to the exact physical mechanics of karma we discussed earlier.
Explain that to me, because to my modern ears, wait a few lifetimes, sounds like the ultimate brush-off. It's like a mentor showing you the literal secrets of the universe, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have the answers you desperately seek, and then telling you to come back in 300 years because your vibes are slightly off. Why would Yunfang do this?
Because in this cosmological framework, enlightenment cannot be rushed, and intellectual understanding is absolutely not the same thing as spiritual readiness.
Because karma is physical.
Yes. Remember, karma is a physical substance here. Dongbin has spent 46 years intensely striving for Confucian's success. That striving, that ambition, has created dense, heavy karmic matter within his soul.
And a dream can't just erase that.
The trauma of the dream was a hammer that cracked that dense shell, giving him a revelation. But a revelation is just a crack. It is just a spark. The actual mechanical process of dissolving 46 years of karmic density takes massive amounts of time, rigorous practice, and enduring real physical hardship.
So Yunfeng is essentially saying, you're high on the revelation right now. You just woke up from the nightmare, and you want the comfort of the Tao to soothe you. But your fundamental, energetic nature hasn't completely shifted yet. The heavy karma is still in your bones.
Exactly. If Yunfang accepted him immediately, while he was still just reacting to the shock of the dream, Dongbin's ego would likely just pivot.
What do you mean?
He might treat immortality as just another worldly achievement, a shiny new replacement for the imperial exams. He might try to become the Zhuangguan of Taoism, competing to be the best immortal. He would still be operating on the software of ambition.
Ah, I see.
Yunfang has to deny him to force Dongbin to prove that his resolve is genuine and to begin the slow process of burning off that karma.
I see the logic now. It's an energetic necessity. The rejection is actually the very first test, and the text notes exactly what happens next. Dongbin doesn't throw a tantrum. He doesn't chase Yunfang and beg.
Right.
He doesn't shrug and go back to studying for the exams.
No, he makes a huge shift.
He abandons his Confucian life entirely. He leaves his wealthy family. He retires from the world. He makes the incredibly hard physical choice to change his daily reality based on the insight of the dream. And then the text drops a tantalizing detail. It tells us that Yunfang secretly, from the shadows, sets up 10 specific trials to test him.
Yes, the famous 10 trials of Liu Dongbin. We don't have time to go through all of them today, but they are designed to mercilessly test every single facet of his character and prove his non-attachment in the physical world.
Give me a quick example of a trial.
Well, in one trial, he is confronted by a fierce tiger, testing his attachment to his own physical life. In another, he is offered immense wealth, testing his greed. In another, his family is threatened, testing his emotional attachments. The dream was just the simulated prerequisite course to see if he even qualified to take the actual physical trials.